This is Mark Spiders from Smoke It and See, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking Podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Mark Spiders of Smoke It and See.
Yeah, formerly of Willard.
Yeah.
What's he promoting?
They got a new 5-song EP,
Yes.
self-titled, and then they have a new 7-inch single with Rockstar and Room909 on it. The band Smoke It and See is half members from Willard and half members from Green Apple Quickstep from back in the day.
Yeah, he was a great guest. Let's get to that interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. Mark, welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Mark, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're excited to have you. I know we were supposed to have you back in the late summer, early fall. Tragedy struck, but we're glad we finally got you on. So let's get right into this. So, hey,
Sounds good.
Yeah, man, Smoke It and See recently released a 7-inch vinyl single of Rockstar and Room909. Can you give our listeners an insight to the writing and recording of these two tracks?
All right. Yeah. Let's see. We'll start with Rockstar. Rockstar was probably the first Smoke It and See song.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a riff I'd been working on for a while. And, I'd probably worked on 24 other ones, and I was working with my partner and, my wife, Marianne. She's the singer and bass player in the band. And, of course, she threw out the first 24 riffs I came up with, and the 25th one was probably Rockstar. And she liked that one, and we started working on that one together. And she started working out her lyrics, and that was the birth of the song. And what we did with the other songs, too, a friend came over, and we set up a recording studio in the house, and we just laid down some rough tracks. And then we kicked those tracks over to Jeff and Otis. And Otis is the other guitar player in the band, and Jeff's the drummer. And that way they knew what was going on, and they could start to get an idea of what they wanted to do with their parts. And that's kind of the way we work in this band. And we did the same thing with Room909. It was like this just weird blues riff, and it just sort of morphed into what it is, and I like it because it's weird.
It's very cool.
And then the single version, is it a different version than the EP version?
It is, actually. We got to have some fun. We did some in-studio magic with Rob Davidson, the guy that produced it, and we came up with like a 70s extended version of the song for the single.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, where can listeners find the single?
Right now, if you go to Bandcamp, you can pick one up. We had 100 of this version pressed up. It's a white vinyl 7-inch with some special artwork, and I think there's got to be at least 7 or 8 left at Bandcamp.
Very good. Well, when it comes to, I guess, packaging and marketing, very unique way with this white vinyl. It's very clean looking, very sparkly, I guess. Can you talk a little bit more about like the band's approach to packaging and marketing the band?
Yeah, I think just simplicity, trying the whole monochrome kind of thing, and not trying to get too busy with any of that stuff. Yeah, just kind of keeping it simple.
Very good. I guess the next question would be, how do you and the rest of the band view releasing new music as a tangible product when so many artists now are releasing things as far, just in digital format? Is it still important for you and the rest of the band that still have a tangible physical product out there for your fans to actually grab a hold of and read and listen to and put it on the...
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. That's part of the fun. I mean, the digital age is great. It's fantastic. I mean, it's opened so many doors. But coming from the analog age, I still yearn for that analog tone and, for that vinyl and the artwork on the vinyl instead of just a thumbnail to see the artwork, Yeah, so it is kind of important to us, and half the fun, putting the vinyl and the CDs out for people and making limited edition runs. That's cool for people that collect, having a collectible, record, a collectible CD.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there are, I think, 5 tracks on the EP. Do you guys have plans for working on any more tunes?
We do. We've actually got another batch that's just about ready to record now, and we just kind of put it on the back burner because we had so much going on here. Earlier this fall, Marianne played a show with one of her old bands, Green Apple Quickstep, in Seattle, and that was just a ton of fun. We saw a lot of old friends out there, and so we kind of put Smoke It and See on the back burner while that was going on, but now we've been back working on that stuff, and we're looking forward to getting in the studio again. We'll probably go back to Avast again. We just like that studio so much, and the guy, Stuart Hallerman, the owner of it, he's super cool and was instrumental in the early grunge scene. He came out from Chicago with an important batch of people. He was friends with Bruce Pavitt over at Sub Pop, Kim Thale from Soundgarden. Gosh, I'm going to forget some of these guys. It was a group of guys, and they all kind of came out from the Chicago area and were really part of the birth of the grunge scene, and they don't get enough credit for it. But anyway, Stuart has had a studio the whole time. He was, like I think I said, he was one of Soundgarden's earliest sound men and toured with them and is good friends with those guys. And so we'd like to support him, and his equipment is incredible. The old analog consoles in there. I think he just sold the Trident A-Range, unfortunately, that we recorded the record on, but his other board is really nice too.
I want to kind of bring this back to the tangible product. Like we talked about the band's EP. For you and the rest of the band, is the EP format kind of the preference for you and the band as far as when you're releasing tangible music to release it on an EP opposed to trying to push out an LP of some type? I guess where is the band at right now as far as functionality goes and something like that?
Yeah, I think the EP thing is cool, and it's better to do that than to try and push out a 12-inch, or a full-length record that's maybe not going to have as great of songs. I think it's better to focus on the good songs and release less material than puke out a bunch of material that's maybe not so great. And And the reason we went with the EP format, it was kind of an economics thing too. You know, I looked back at when we had one of our early bands, Willard, Otis and I played in Seattle during the grunge days. And when we did our EP back then for Green Gel Records, you know, we went into the studio and basically laid all the tracks down in a day and then came back and mixed it in a day. And I was like, you know, we did that on that project. We could do the same thing with this. And it worked out great. We went in there, we were prepared, you know, we'd rehearsed the material, and that's exactly what we did. We just recorded for a day basically, and then got back together with Rob and did some mixing, and we're really happy with the product. We'll probably do the same thing again and release another EP. Maybe we'll mix it up and do a full length later with some different versions, some kind of collectible release.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, yeah, can you talk a little bit more about in the studio? Because, you know, today a lot of bands we talk to, they just, you know, we send each other the tracks through the airwaves and stuff. But, you know, it kind of sounds like you guys are getting in the studio together and working out the songs. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
You bet. You know, the studio, as far as recording, you know, I mean, it's great, the DIY atmosphere that we live in now, where, you know, anybody can record. You can record anywhere. You know, you don't even really need a recording studio anymore if you know what you're doing, and that's fantastic. I think it allows so much art to be out there. But I still love to use an old style studio and get in there and get those analog tones and spend time with the people in the room. You know, there's some kind of magic that happens during a live recording in a studio when everybody's actually tracking together and you're in there and making it happen. It's just kind of special, rather than, you know, looking at it from a more surgical perspective and everybody just recording a track and then just having it all, you know, put together later. So yeah, I'm into the studio aspect of it. Nice. I like that, the human aspect of that. Yeah.
As far as songwriting goes, is it a collaborative effort within the band, or does the band have a focal songwriter? Or I guess kind of tell us a little bit more about the songwriting process for you guys. Yeah,
I think it's really left up to everybody. It's not like a solo project for anybody or anything. Everybody really just brings their own thing to the table, and that's what makes it a lot of fun. You know, I mean, there can be an idea behind a song if somebody's come up and, you know, you can share what that idea was or whatever, but we're not, you know, literally trying to look at each other and say, you know, play exactly these chords or exactly this beat or whatever. Everybody's got that freedom to do what they want.
Yeah, very good. Jeff, you got the next one?
For playing live, do you guys have any shows coming up in 24?
We don't have anything on the calendar right now. Our friend Dana over at the old off-ramp, the El Corazon, has been trying to get us to play. We'll probably go play a show there maybe late spring or else in the summer after we record.
Very nice. A twofold question here, or two-part question, I should say. Okay. I guess this is more of like the history of the band. Some of our listeners might be ignorant to Smoke It and See, but can you give us the history or the origins of the band, and I guess maybe break down the actual band members?
Yeah. I guess if you just take it back, we're all musicians from Seattle, from the late 80s, early 90s scene, and we all knew each other back then, and over the years have remained friends and played in different projects together over time. Back in, late 80s, Marianne and I had a band together called Bath Crashing Spiders, and it was like psychedelic, pre-grunge, kind of heavy rock and roll stuff, and we were doing that. And then I met Otis Piotis, and he and I started playing in a band called Snuff at that point, which was an early punk rock, pre-grunge kind of band in 1988, 1989 or so. And then Marianne started playing with Big Satan Incorporated at that time, early Seattle band. I'm not sure who Jeff was playing with at that point. I have to ask him. But and then let's see, just as the years wore by, Otis and I played in a couple different bands together. Then Sunshine and Ditch Witch, which Tad Doyle from Tad played in that band with us. And then we started Willard, which we kind of stole Tad's drummer Steve Weed. We didn't really steal him; he just left the band, but he joined our band then. And at that time, Marianne had moved on to another Seattle band called Sledge, and then she'd been asked to play with these guys from Inspector Love and the Ride Me Babies. Their bass player had quit, and so she started playing with them. And then they renamed as Green Apple Quickstep.
Yeah.
So now we're into the early 90s. Marianne had reason to get a new drummer, and they brought in Jeff Redding, and he worked on Green Apple's third record with those guys. He came on board around then, and he's in their kid video with them. Otis and I remained friends over the years, played in various other projects, and same with Marianne and Jeff. And then Marianne and I were like, we should really, work on a new band together. We've been jamming on this stuff, working on this material, and so we did. We started taking it a little more serious and working on more material. And we were like, well, who should we bring on board? And my first choice was Otis. He'd been my lead guitar player in, most of the bands I've played in over the years. And the first person she wanted to bring on board then in the rhythm section on the drums was Jeff. She'd spent the most time playing the bass with him and a lot of shows together. And they were both into it. They both said it sounded like fun. And so we got together and we laid our ideas on them and some of the bones of the new songs, and had some rehearsal sessions in Seattle at one of our friends' studios, and worked out the stuff a little more, hashed them out a little more. And then, like I said, Marianne and I did some just demo tracks here in the cabin, and then bounced them back over to those guys so they could continue to work out their parts, and then just ended up back in the studio again.
Very good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Pretty much the birth of Smoke It and See. Marianne came up with that name.
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
A lot of times we ask, the bass player drummer relationship, but you're just kind of alluding to Otis, and you guys are both guitarists. So can you tell us a little bit about how you guys complement each other and contrast?
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a rhythm guitar player. Like to lock in, with the rhythm section, the drums and the bass. And Otis, at least in this project, is definitely more of a lead guitar player. And so most all the soloing that you hear on the record, the slide guitar, stuff like that, is Otis.
Very cool.
So I know this might be a difficult question to answer, but it always fascinated me, and it still fascinates me to this day. The Seattle scene, the musicianship there is very transient. They jump from band to band to band to band. It's been very interesting to watch the family tree of the Seattle music scene and the bands and musicians that have crossed paths. But for you, can you talk a little bit more about that relationship that the Seattle music scene has with, I guess, band members jumping from band to band, and it just seems like it's almost effortless.
It just depends which band that you're talking about, but I think I know what you mean. Kind of like how, Dan Peters played with the Melvins,
yes,
early on, and sat in with Nirvana at one point, and Tad Doyle sat in with my band and played drums at one point. Things like that. I think it's just a friendship kind of thing, just rock and roll friendship. It's the people you're hanging out with, the people you're seeing all the time, the people you enjoy jamming with, and say you don't have a particular player, lined up ready to go, or or for some reason they couldn't make it, then other people are always happy to fill in. One of the good ones I thought was great, I don't know if Chris was too happy about it, but was that Soundgarden show at the Crocodile. And Chris didn't show up, and the other Soundgarden guys asked Tad if he wanted to do it, and he said sure. And so Tad sang the vocals that night for the Soundgarden show. I don't know if you guys heard that.
I did not. No. I did not.
Yeah, but that was a good one.
Nice.
Do you find, and pardon my ignorance once again, but do you find that the Seattle scene and the Seattle area has a certain, I guess maybe it might be easy for somebody that's from Seattle to answer the question, but it seems like there's a camaraderie there with musicians that is nowhere else that I've ever seen before. But they have a camaraderie with the bands are not rivals; they're more friends. Am I right when I say that?
Maybe so. Yeah, I think it might just be a West Coast thing, a Northwest thing. People just seem to be kind of more friendly in general. I don't mean to stereotype, and I don't mean to diss on people, from the Midwest or the East Coast or whatever, but people do just seem to be a little more laid back and friendly. And as far as the music scene goes, yeah, I think that it's just a camaraderie. Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, can you talk a little bit about your guitar? Do you have a favorite that you use, or do you use a couple different ones?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I definitely have a favorite guitar. My favorite one that I've been playing for the past, I guess it's 2 going on 3 years now, is a 1958 Les Paul Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something I always thought about, but I just never got my hands on one over the years. And one day I'm just browsing the internet, and I see this one, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a god-awful metallic green color, which Gibson never did. They never offered one like that. And I kind of laughed about it, and I was like, well, it's actually affordable, because it's not a collector-grade one with the original paint job on it. And I called up my buddy Otis, and, the guitar player, and Smoke It and See with me, and I told him about it, and he's like, oh, yeah, that thing, I've seen that. And I was wondering if he'd be interested in it, because he likes, nice Gibson guitars, too, and the tone you can get out of that old tone wood. And he passed on it, and it was just killing me. And I thought about it, and and it was still available. And I bought it off the internet, which was a big gamble, because you don't get to play the guitar. You're just trusting the guy who's selling it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed up, and it played fantastic and really blew me away. But the tone wasn't exactly what I was after. Somebody had replaced the P90 pickup over the years with a P90 out of a later guitar. And I thought, if I could just find, the correct P90 for this, maybe that'd be the tone I'm after. And so I kind of spent some time looking around on the internet. And sure enough, I found a 1957 P90 for sale up for auction. And that's what would have been in a 1958 Les Paul Jr. was a 57 P90. And so I won the auction, and I was totally stoked. I was like, all right, this is going to be great. And this is during the COVID. And then the winner sends me, or the guy that I won it from, he sends me a message and says, oh, I'm really sorry. I just had to leave the state. I'm going to be spending some time with my dad. He's got the COVID right now. And so I'm not going to be able to send you that. Should I just refund you? And I was like, no, it's cool, man. I hope your dad's all right. Go ahead, see your dad. And when you get back, just mail me that pickup. And he was like, okay. And so he was gone for a while. And I think his dad did pass away from COVID. But the guy sends me this pickup. And I get it in the guitar, and oh man, it was just what it needed. It just woke it up, just brought it alive, and it's awesome. Just got the greatest tone of any guitar that I've ever owned, and it plays fantastic. So yeah, I'm just so stoked with this 58 Junior.
What gauge of strings do you use?
They're just 10 to 46.
Is that standard with all guitars that you use?
Yeah, pretty much.
Very good. Well, shall we move on to Willard? It's been a while. When I first heard Willard, and for me, listening to Willard was Wow, this is a step in a heavier direction than what I'm used to from the Seattle scene. Can you talk a little bit more about the origins of Willard and I guess maybe the sound the band was aiming for when they formed together?
Sure. Otis and I were playing in a band called Sunshine with Darren Vegas and Patty Schemmel, who would later join Hole, and Faye West. And one of our new songs we'd come up with at the time, we decided to use a drop D tuning, which was to us kind of experimental. Some other bands were experimenting with it at the time. Nirvana was trying it out. Soundgarden was trying it out. And we wrote this song called Oil Machine. And I was just like, oh man, this is it. This is it, man. This is what, we should be doing. And Otis was really into it. Darren was really into it. And Faye and Patty, not so much. They were more into the straightforward kind of punk rock that we had been playing. Mm-hmm. And so then we kind of disbanded. Patty joined Hole at some point after that, and Faye moved on. And Darren and Otis and I started Willard, with the intention of using that D tuning that we used on Oil Machine in Sunshine, and purposely, writing some heavier punk rock, kind of nonconformist rock and roll.
Fantastic. Jeff, you got the next one?
Steel Meal in 1992, you guys had Jack and Dino produce it. Can you talk a little bit about working with him as a legendary producer in the studio?
Yeah, Jack was super cool. We were stoked to work with Jack when we went in and checked out Avast. Stu had recommended him, and of course, we knew who he was. He's a local producer. So we were like, yeah, we worked it out and got together with him. And he was very cool to work with, very laid back, and a guy who took his work really serious. He made sure that you were getting the tones that you were after, out of the drums and out of your guitars, your bass, your vocals, everything. He really took it serious. So I can see how he's been so successful all these years later, and even he had the instant success with the Nirvana record. But
yes.
But he was totally dedicated to his craft and a really fun guy to work with. He made it fun. He made it cool, and he wasn't smoking a bunch of weed or drinking or messing around with drugs or anything. He was really taking it serious, sitting there, drinking his juice and eating his beet chips, and I probably drove him a little bit crazy. I wanted a tracking sheet for the record. I wanted to see just how exactly is Jack, going to dial this stuff in. How is the EQ on the board going to be set when he's mixing this down? And so I gave him some tracking sheets, and he was like, what's this? And I said, well, I was, hoping you'd fill out the tracking sheets for me. And he did. I've still got them to this day, and it's probably one of the only bands that ever asked him to do that. I don't know.
Oh, very cool. Well, you've worked with other producers besides Jack, but can you kind of compare and contrast your time working with Jack in the studio opposed to the other producers that you've worked with?
Well, like I said, he took it really serious. He really is into his craft and, went the extra mile. I mean, he would spend, hours tuning the drum kit as opposed to, another producer might not tune the kit at all. He might think, okay, this drummer has the kit tuned, the way he wants it. But Jack was very particular about helping you get the tones that you wanted for the record. Very, very particular.
Fantastic.
Well, you guys recorded an album in 1993, but it didn't get released until much later, 2018, Underground.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that process of I think you guys took the 2-inch tapes and made them digital. We've talked to some other artists that have done similar projects like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We did, and that Jack and Dino's kind of linked into that too, because he's one of the early guys that started baking the 2-inch tapes, so you could restore them and get that material off of there and transfer it to digital. And so he was doing that with Stuart at Avast. So we took the tapes over there to Stuart, and Stuart had the tapes baked and then did the digital transfer process, and transferred them to digital for you so that then you could actually take it in and remix it with Pro Tools. Because back in the day when we had recorded that, there was no Pro Tools. Everything was just analog.
Mm. That album, Underground, was released on Black Guitar Records. Can you talk a little bit more about the band's relationship with the label at that time? Yeah.
Black Guitar Records was basically the guys in the band, and we just wanted to do a self-release. We recorded that record at the ranch back in Seattle, and basically the band broke up. It was just too much rock and roll. I mean, too much drugs, too much alcohol, just all that, and it had run its course. So, we had been sitting on that material for years, and I was like, man, we should really do something with that before something happens to those tapes. And so we started, our own record label and did the self-release with the Underground record then.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, is that still available anywhere, or do you guys have thought about doing any re-releases of any of your
material? I think it's out of print right now. You can still stream it, but we should talk and see about maybe doing another batch of those.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Well, we're running out of our allotted time for the evening. I have one last question for you, and then we'll leave you alone. Sound good?
Okay.
All right. Well, I asked this question to all of our guests. The mystery of rock and roll, there's no longer a mystery anymore with the dawning of all the different social medias out there. There's no Zeppelin, there's no Nirvana, there's no mystery of anything anymore. For you, the musician and the fan of rock and roll, what do you prefer? Do you miss that mystery and mystique that rock and roll once had, or do you like this new age of accessibility? Because let's face it, if we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't be doing this with you tonight.
I love that we are doing this, and I love that the internet is there for the great new forms of communication and for people to put their art form out there. But I think that that spirit of rock and roll is still there, and the way people can experience that is they've got to go out and see the live music. They've got to get to the show, go out there and see their favorite artists actually perform, and then they can see that spark, that synergy. They can see where it all comes from and be part of it, and then have that permanent memory to take that with them. And that's what rock and roll is about.
Fantastic. Well, like I said, we're not running out of our allotted time this evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
Oh, I just want to tell the young people out there to stay the fuck off fentanyl. It's killing everybody like crazy. I think everybody out here now knows somebody who's been affected by that. And it's not like doing drugs, when I was in my 20s. I mean, yeah, you had a risk of overdosing, but the fentanyl is a whole new ballgame, and it's, literally hundreds or 1,000 times more deadly than the old drugs were. And so if you're a young person out there and you want to get high, don't use fentanyl.
Well said. Thank you so much. Well, this is how things are going to work out. We're about, a week and a half to 2 weeks behind on our episodes. But once this is ready to go, Jeff, the editing wizard over here, will get this all cleaned up for you, and then we'll send it to you. And please share it wherever you possibly can, because we will.
Okay.
Sound good?
Hey, sounds great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Hey,
it's really cool talking with you.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for coming on.
All right.
Thanks,
sounds
Mark.
Great.
Take care,
guys.
Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
pays their bills instead. Hide in the spotlights, fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their eyes. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.